Somebody's got the right idea for the weekend. Welcome back to Chicago Crossing Model Railroad. Eric here with you for a layout update. Thanks for tuning in and joining me here at the railroad. A few things to talk about today. First off, Chicago Crossing now has in the neighborhood of over 5,000 subscribers. I think that's something that happened just within the last couple of months. 5,000 is sort of an arbitrary milestone, but it's a milestone nonetheless. And so thank you very much for tuning in, for supporting the channel. If you've subscribed recently, welcome, and hope you're enjoying yourselves on the little railroad here. It's always great to have you with. And as always, it's a real pleasure to be able to interact with you and to enjoy chatting in the comments section and stuff like that. So with that in mind, it seems worthwhile to actually set up an easy way to get in touch and to contact me outside of YouTube comments. It's been a lot of fun because I've met a few folks and we've exchanged emails and have been able to talk back and forth about different topics related to model railroading. I think that's lovely. And so at this point, I will share on the screen an email address that you can get a hold of me. This will be specifically for railroading. That way it stays out of my other emails for professional purposes and things like that. God knows I always love answering model railroading emails or things like that. So anyway, it'll be a blast. Get in touch with me if you want. I'm happy to chat about all sorts of interesting stuff with respect to Chicago Crossing. And on top of that, I'm still in the process of learning a lot about model railroading too. So chances are at some point I'll have questions for you as well. So in addition to that, just wanted to provide a few updates as to where programming is moving on Chicago Crossing. So like I mentioned, I think maybe 3,000 subscribers ago, Chicago Crossing's YouTube channel is really a reflection of where I am with the hobby. And so what that means is the content reflects what I'm interested in at any given time. It reflects what I want to do. It reflects what excites me. And, I understand that that's not always everybody's cup of tea. Every now and then I get a request, hey, why don't you do more operations videos? Or, why don't you build this? You said you were going to do it, or that. And, that's all fine. I'm always glad that somebody is really interested in what some of the upcoming things are. But the difference between a happy modeler enjoying a hobby and a poorly paid YouTube content creator is vast and meaningful. If I make this model railroad essentially a vehicle for obtaining impressions and views and subscribers and clicks and all that sort of stuff, I guarantee you that the joy and the quality associated with this content will go downhill dramatically. There is a really, really big difference between a YouTube modeler and a modeler on YouTube. It depends on where you put your priorities. And some people are able to operate in the YouTube modeler universe where they have the bandwidth to be able to come back on a weekly or even more than weekly basis and to create meaningful content in some cases, and in other cases to create less meaningful content. For some people, it is almost like a second job, and for some people, it's actually a job, or they're retired and therefore it's a further source of income. For me, I'm in the peak of my professional career. I run a laboratory at a major research institution. Cancer is not going to cure itself, and so the vast portion of my time is devoted to that vocation. For me, this is a hobby, and it will always be so. So with that in mind, when I come down to the train room, I really want to be able to enjoy my time, and I let my passion kind of tell me what I'm interested in at the moment and what I want to do. So what I simply ask is your forbearance as I come down to the train room on a occasional weekend basis, sometimes not even for a few weeks, depending on my travel schedule or my work schedule, and decide how I want to engage with the hobby in a way that helps me be a better scientist, and that just helps me enjoy myself and turn off all the parts of my brain that have to be firing on all cylinders 6 to 7 days a week. So thanks again for subscribing, and it's really wonderful to have you all here at the channel, and it's been a lot of fun to work on this railroad with you. Let's turn to a few cool things that I've managed to pick up. So this has been the haul over probably the last few months. It's actually been a while since I've done layout updates, since most of the time has been spent weathering rail cars, at which point there isn't a whole heck of a lot to update you on with respect to the layout itself, since I hadn't really touched it a whole bunch or worked on it a whole bunch. It's mostly been trying to perfect my craft when it comes to weathering. So this is projects for the future, details and other things that are a lot of fun to work with. Some of this stuff is great, and it's amazing what you can find just randomly on eBay. This is a great example. These are actual 1/160th proper Chicago fire hydrants. And you may say to yourself, Eric, why on earth do you give a crap about the shape of a fire hydrant? You can barely see those things. They're probably about 3 millimeters high. And the answer is, when it's your model railroad, you kind of find things that you may prioritize. And I think every model railroad is, on some level, a certain selective or subjective vision. And you may find that you want to dive in deeply on certain details, and then other details let go and just kind of let it be. So for me, yeah, Chicago fire hydrants, absolutely, I'll go for that. In addition, I managed to find an eBay seller who was basically producing a whole bunch of 3D printed stuff like roof hatches, doors, air conditioning units, vents. All of this is really nice resin printed stuff, and it was cheap as heck. It was something like maybe $10–15, and I've just had an explosion of very tiny panels come out of that bag. But you've got tiny little rotary vents and just a big mix of everything in here. Air conditioning units and the like, small vent pipes and stuff like that for bathrooms or whatever it might be, furnaces. So anyway, that'll be a lot of fun. The other thing that happened to also come with it from the same manufacturer, and this is great just given the urban environment, is very, very tiny little window air conditioners. They've even got the little piece of wood or the tray that they're sitting on. So given I've got more than a few apartment buildings that probably need window AC, that'll be a lot of fun to just kind of deal with as a detail. And in addition, a few chimneys that will actually be useful on some of the apartment buildings where I don't have a lot of roof furniture. So I think this stuff is actually really nice. I've played before with the Walthers, roof accessories packs, things like this, where you put them together, and that's nice and all, but that is like industrial size. So it's much better to have a few things that are scalable to, say, a smaller building. So we live in an age of miracles and wonder. There's no doubt about it. 3D printing is just a phenomenal enterprise. So in addition to that, I also recently pulled off all of the power poles on the layout. And I've been thinking about experimenting with a few different options, including just partial scratch builds. And so I obtained these because a pole is a pole no matter what. But these are basically Showcase Miniatures power pole accessory packs. And calling them power poles is a little bit disingenuous, because if you look at how those are, it actually looks much more like the old-fashioned telegraph poles where you'd have tons of wires. So actually these are perfect for replacing the old Bachmann things that were sitting around the layout. Those actually aren't terrible. They're reasonably well to scale, but these offer a lot more flexibility in terms of customizing them, adding crooked cross arms and all sorts of things that would be appropriate for the early to mid 90s, when some of those poles are still up, but at the same time are essentially decrepit. In addition, I've been spending a little bit of time over at Mini Prints, and they came up with some really sweet models of large dumpsters, and this will be perfect for the Pickens and Kane area next to the loading dock where these sort of things are usually kept. So I've got a trash compactor there, and then a large industrial size dumpster over here with doors. Mini Prints is fantastic. I've got a few figurines that still need to be painted. White Sox hat guy is already on the layout, but I need a few others to finish. And I've got a couple of backyards where those apartments are, so they've got a really cool bathtub Madonna. You can kind of see here, sort of a typical urban sculpture where if you have a little grotto for Our Lady of Guadalupe, well, that's an easy way to protect it in an old clawfoot. So I love that little touch. That'll go beautifully into the South Side neighborhood that I've got. And then lastly, some tractor tires here. My thinking is I'm going to give these a shot as replacements for some of the other tires that were just hanging down by where the barges are. So these I think will be maybe a little bit more properly scaled as protection for the sheet pilings that the barges are docked against. So we'll see how that plays out. Just kind of an interesting experiment. If that doesn't work, these can go anywhere, so I'm not too worried about that. Last thing has been metal wheels. These are both 36-inch wheels. Just about all the cars I have 36-inch wheels. So these are tangent. These are good for micro trains. These are these are Intermountain, and these are the .554 axle length. So they're for Atlas because of the wider bolsters in the trucks. So anyway, I'm going to be swapping out wheels. Most of my wheels on my cars are plastic, so there will probably be a big wheel paint-a-thon coming up. I'm probably just going to build my own apparatus, especially if I'm doing wheels en masse. I'm going to basically just try to find correct drill bits to just drill a ton of holes into some sheets of balsa, so I can actually just put all these wheels together and paint them at once in a large manifold. So we'll see how that goes. Lastly, and these featured somewhat prominently in the boxcar weathering video, are these AK weathering pencils. I'd kind of mentioned during the video, I was still trying to find a little bit of a rationale for what to do with them. I think I figured that out actually, and we'll talk a little about that a little bit more when you see the video about the Cassidy Tire warehouse that I'm currently working on. And let's actually head over to the layout. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So here you can see the Cassidy Tire Company warehouse. This is a Walthers kit. By no means is that Walthers kit a true representation of what the old Cassidy Tire warehouse looked like. That building was actually a very, very simplistic looking brick building. Didn't have a whole lot of decor to it, and it didn't actually have the concrete structure. I think it was an older building than that. So the external concrete frame was not necessarily something obvious for the building. Nonetheless, this building is a Walthers kit that I built probably in like 2016 or 2017. And, when I built it, I painted it using thin paints to just try to get some variety in the brick. Put the usual, dark gray spray paint on the roof, and kind of called it a day. It was well done in terms of craftsmanship, in terms of getting the concrete versus brick set up nicely. But at the same time, no weathering, no character, and that was fine. It was a background building, so most people probably ignore it anyway, including me. And more recently, I've decided to jump back into working on the rear left side of the layout, where the near north side is, so Finkel Steel and Cassidy Tires. With that in mind, I decided to basically detail and redo certain aspects of this building. So I've been spending the last couple of weekends working on the brickwork and the concrete to start the process of weathering it and to add in mortar joints in between the brick and to just get the brick looking a lot better. So I think you'll get the full detailed video as this goes on. I'll probably just put it out as a series because, as you can tell, I've just really begun the process of this thing. It's still got redone putty up on the top to make sure that the roof joints are sound. It needs to be lit up and all sorts of other things. So that's going to be a bit of a process. And for me, it's kind of the warm-up stage for getting into the Finkel scratch build as well. So moving from rail cars to buildings. And I think that'll be sort of a welcome thing. Like I mentioned before, I sort of approach things in a non-linear fashion, and sort of when I'm ready to go about doing them. I've been spending quite a while researching the way the Finkel buildings looked, and so that needs a fair amount of planning. Scratch building is not something you necessarily just dive into. You actually have to come up with a plan as to what you want to do, and then you can go do that thing. So that's more or less where I am. But in the meantime, we'll go through the process of renovating this building and getting it much more up to speed and looking much better relative to the way it did. So with that, thanks again for tuning in and joining me for a little weekend update, and look forward to seeing you next time on Chicago Crossing Model Railroad. Take care.